Okay, I have all the pieces. Sorry, I should have prepared before.
Second, guys. Sorry, I'm doing something that's kind of time sensitive. So,
No, that's too small.
but it'll be done. I think it's done. I think it's done. Okay. Done. All right.
Actually, we're not using this at this point, so let me make that bigger. And hopefully more legible hygiene.
Hola.
Hola.
Hello.
Okay, we have the pieces. Where did we leave one another?
I think we were just about, we had a bunch of different options proposed. We had completed something that was kind of controversial.
Tim, I don't hear you. Do you the others?
Are you not hearing me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Others hear him?
Yeah. Can you hear us, Marc Antoine?
No, it was on my side. Apologies. Okay.
I think I'm going to open my version of this document to talk to. Yeah, we had just completed the pre-existing claim is used to support another claim or the one before it. I guess it was the claim supporting the claim support. And we had kind of refactored the model. My dog has to go out. So there were a bunch of directions we could head now related to the model and related to not. And I remember one thing that I wanted to kind of suss out a little more. Well, I mean, we're in the proposal phase, so let's just put it at that. I threw in one that was an issue that had come up before in the previous discussion. That very last one: a claim is created to support another claim. The argument is given a sentence that is supposed to be different from the sentence for the supporting claim, because there's no such thing as an argument yet. I thought we had changed the name from claim to from support to argument, but it doesn't really matter because we also kind of said, well, we've changed the model at least for now so that you only support, right? If you want to oppose, you actually support a negation claim, and the system handles that by automatically creating the negation. So there's always a negation. But the point then, one way or another, is that if we've modeled it that support is a claim, sure, claim can have support can have a sentence. But if you look at every other case, it's like a claim is created to support or oppose another claim. And in that case, we imagine the user putting in the sentence. But if you actually think about that use case, they're putting in the sentence for the claim, not for the support. Now you're talking and we don't hear you, Marc Antoine.
Apologies. Okay, well, there's two sentences, right? One for the supporting claim and one for the support itself.
Right, so, right. So maybe this should be changed to, and I put argument here, but I guess it's support. So maybe you can change that also to capital.
The supporting claim or the support?
The support.
Yeah.
So it would be both. The claim is given a sentence.
Okay, so this is not.
And
sentence.
the support is given.
The supporting claim and the argument. Well, the support.
And the support. Yeah, we can change that if we have to change the name of the class.
Are both given a sentence that is different from this. Are both given a sentence.
But the sentence is
are each given
mandatory, right?
Yeah, it's not mandatory. We have cases where that doesn't happen.
Jamie has a question.
Yeah, is there any distinction being made between truth and relevance here?
We
Okay.
haven't gotten to any use cases about those, no. So if you wanted to take the discussion in that direction, you could propose a use case that would start to get into that.
Okay, well, let me open a map and then I will propose one, but feel free to continue until I do that. Because I'm running around right now.
But so we're on the phase, yeah, while you're doing that, does anybody else have a use case they would like to propose?
That is, it does bring up the question when we're saying opposing, do we need to kind of say whether it's truth or relevance, or do you think we could just say it opposes it without saying?
So far,
Does it make
we
sense?
haven't. I mean, it's made sense to us as something that we would want to happen. It also makes sense in terms of the model. The model doesn't define what that means. It just means you've created a relation. If you want it to make sense from a functionality perspective, then you have to create a use case that describes that functionality, right? So does it make sense? Yes, because we know where it's going.
Well, I mean, does it make sense to the user is kind of what I'm thinking, you know, but yeah, I guess a lot of times people don't think about how they're opposing it. They're just opposing it. So it could work.
The one question I have is the supporting claim and the support are both given a sentence. What about can both be given a sentence? Is that because we said it may not be mandatory, just making sure we have
It's
the right...
no, since we're kind of using terminology of use cases, it's something that happens and you're saying,
Okay.
Yeah, but we already have other ones where they didn't give a sentence for the support, right? So,
right.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, sorry. For use case, you don't mean me pulling up an example of the distinction between truth and relevance. You mean me just stating it as a use case?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I can just state that, I guess.
But yeah, what's
do you have the Google Doc?
What?
Do you have the Google Doc reference? Do you have
that we're
access?
looking at here? It's pinned to the Hangouts.
And
Okay,
I
thank you,
put
Mark.
it also in there. And if you
I will
don't-
add it here. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm looking at things, trying to remember what was controversial at this point, and there were a lot of constraints that are not, embedded in the model, and Stephen would probably have issues with that, but I think it's fine. About equivalence classes. Requires validation of a claim. Oops.
Yep, sorry, I just freeze this header column to the top instead of having it in between.
I approve. Yeah, there's all the stuff about distinction, but I think that can wait. Yeah, there was that question. Can we preemptively negate an equivalence? That was among the slightly controversial things. And I think for me, this is all good. The question is, how do we handle disagreement? But Stephen would probably say that's another layer when you have handling disagreement.
Disagreement on what?
On whether is this claim really equivalent to that other claim, for example? Is this claim really a negation of another claim? In the case of supports, there's really two things. There's saying this support does not hold because, but then basically you have the negation of the, you support the negation of the support, right? We can do it. Like I can say this support is not valid. How would I do that? I create the negation of the support and then somehow support that negation, right? So that, so far, so good.
Right, right.
The more complex cases I'm interested in are more about other forms of relation between claims, such as, you know, subclasses of claim, or, you know, all the going through all the supporting something by supporting all the subcases. So you need the notion of subcase. There is forms of implication.
So yeah, like with this process, it's best, you know, let's go through the proposed ones here,
yeah, we have
and
a
it'll
lot
kind
of
of
proposals.
spark, yeah, it'll
I agree.
spark eventually the things you want to get in there.
I agree. Let's do that. So do we have, which ones do we propose the most now?
Like mine on the last line is very easy to do, which is one criteria
Okay,
for
let's do it.
selection. Anybody
Anybody-
disagree with that?
Sounds good.
All right, in progress. I mean, the one thing I see it maybe adds to the model is somehow a declaration that sentence is optional for support, right?
The question, isn't it the question like, is sentence optional in general or only for the support?
In this use case, it's saying that, well, actually what this use case does is kind of fortifies the fact that support can inherit from claim. So it doesn't change anything here. But a previous ones that we had accepted implied that maybe support doesn't have a sentence, right? So this is kind of fortifying that, yes, it can have a sentence.
I would make a small distinction here between sentence coming from an example, from a human, blah, 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 versus a textual representation, which is also a sentence. Like if we create a support between two claims, we can easily and probably should generate a textual representation if there's no human generated sentence behind it.
That's true. The question is, should that sentence be stored or should it be automatically generated for the user interface?
That's a valid question, but making it stores makes it clear that any claim has a sentence, which I think is a good thing, because ultimately we'll want to display them to the user.
That's something
so how would you
kept up to date if something changes? So that's a bit.
That's a good question. Our claims mutable.
Yeah.
But you've got a point. Like we can decide if there's many sentences, which is not a use case we have yet, but it's a use case I certainly believe in. If we have multiple sentences for a claim, and then we choose, oh no, this one is a better explanation than that one, and we change the canonical one, with none of which is in the model right now, then the generated sentences should be updated. So that's a good point. And we want to mark the generated sentence as generated.
Yeah, we have like kind of data dependencies in there, which make things more complicated.
In other ways.
If we can avoid them, I think we should not store them.
Well, okay, but we can capture those by separate use cases. For example, maybe a next use case would be a user views a support of a claim that does not have a sentence. The system generates a sentence
on the fly,
textual representation for it. Without going into details, that's just then covering the fact that it's possible to not store information and still generate something. And likewise, you could say a user adds a sentence to a support that doesn't have one of its own. From then on, the system uses that as the textual representation, something like that. Those are different use cases we could discuss.
The thing is, right now we have one sentence, one claim in your model, and that means we have to have all these other things about how to cascade support to the equivalent to all the other equivalent claims, as opposed to having the support working on the equivalence class. of sentences, because the claim is not an equivalence class of sentences as it's defined. So the equivalent class is not modeled at this point. It makes certain things more difficult. That's
Well, yeah, but
that's kind of separate issue at the model level. Maybe it'll come when we do all the entails.
yeah, I think so.
Okay, fair enough.
Do we just accept this as it is, or does somebody want to say anything about its relation to the model?
I think Felix made the point that it makes the sentence optional, and the question you ask stands: is it true only for supports, or is it true for claims in general? I would argue I don't know how to generate a claim without components, which in the case of a claim would be entities, which we don't have yet. So when...
But that's something you could enforce by software, like also this anti-transitive stuff and so on. You say like,
yeah.
Okay, if a claim is not a support, it needs to have a sentence, and if it is a support or any descendant from claim, it can have a sentence.
Yeah, I'd make it a bit more generic than that. If the sentence can be generated from components, then the sentence is not mandatory.
Or like this, yeah.
And that leaves a general. So when the claim can be generated from entities, it can handle that case.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
So is that another use case, or is that a constraint on this use case?
Not on this use case, I think. I mean, you like, I would capture like a user attempts to create a claim without a sentence. The system rejects
the claim is created from components. No. Created claim.
Yeah, this one I think is too vague to work from.
Oh,
That one's too vague for me to be able to work on.
okay. How would you rephrase it?
I mean, it's
because it's a yeah. For example, what are you trying to say here? A user creates a negation of a claim without a sentence, and the system automatically copies the sentence from its negation and adds is false. That would be a use case, right?
Yep.
And that would cover that one instance.
Okay, you want each of them to be specific, as opposed
yeah,
to
because
generic.
this is kind of generic, and it's like, yeah, okay, but
death to abstraction. Okay, fair enough.
yeah, where possible.
What?
Or rather, where like I couldn't do anything with this the way it's stated.
Okay, so let's, fair enough. It just can be generated from the claims components. Well,
I mean, regarding to the in progress use case right now, don't we just want to say, okay, support has an optional user created sentence?
Well, I would do, like I said, a separate use case, which is we just said
okay, so maybe
yeah,
we should...
we just said that they can have separate sentences, right? Which means the support can have a sentence. Then there would be a use case that is a user views a support that does not have a sentence,
But
they are presented with text generated from the
I'm going to do to you what you're doing to me. So we'd have a separate use case for the claim is created to support another claim. The supporting claim is given a sentence, but not the support. That's another use case.
I think we maybe already have that, but yeah, you can go ahead and do it if you want to be even more clear about that.
I don't know if this is in progress anymore. This is proposed. Okay, so this, let me rephrase it. Well, this actually, the specific case of generating it for support is there, and the other one, a user can create creation of claim.
How about instead of a user in this case, it's more like a negation of a claim is created without specifying the sentence.
Okay.
Because I think in most cases, the negation will be generated automatically. In fact, I want always to be generated.
Okay, so what I see here, and very clearly, is that in claim, where's my class claim? No, that's not the right one anyway. I should be here. String sentence, and we have string.
I would more put it as a, oh yeah, it's a function. Okay, yes, exactly.
Yep, it is.
But now we have a method on every claim.
Yep. Well, maybe I should.
I mean, it could be a not implemented. It can just return the
sentence.
The sentence, exactly. I mean, it might be something like that.
But this still requires the support to have a sentence because the support is inheriting from claim.
Well,
but by the use case descriptions, it can be optional.
Okay.
I'm being a bit. This is not strict UML, but I think it conveys. This is used in some type languages to say optional element or nullable.
Yep,
I know. TypeScript, for example.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've kind of leapt around in different use cases here. Can we close out 35, or are we still?
I'm happy to close out 35. Any votes?
Anyone opposed? Okay, mark it completed. I guess that's what it's called. We've kind of moved on now to the other ones. Do you want to work on one of the other ones?
This one, I think this is. I propose we move on this one because we can do it in 2 seconds. I think we agreed. We had the discussion. It's right there.
Right. I agree with that.
Okay.
Good.
Now, does everybody accept that it's completed with the current model?
Oh, sorry. I thought that
you went straight to.
Yeah, I thought that I agree with the use case, not I agree with working on.
Well, we got to step through. Give. It's like a poker. You got to give everybody a chance to raise before you.
It's fair.
Are we all good, or is there something?
I think it's handled by the model right now.
It is. Yeah.
All right, go ahead. Completed.
Yay.
36.
Okay, I'm all for clearing 36 because I also think it's a trivial one.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Because if we have a negation of a claim, we don't know which one was the original claim. So from which, like, let's say the user entered a claim and someone else wants to say something about the negation. And
Yes.
this use case is basically saying, yeah, okay, you can talk about the negation with its automatically generated sentence because
Correct.
nobody specified a sentence for that
Correct.
negation. But how, like looking at the model, how is that possible?
Well,
It's like, okay, I can have a claim without a sentence.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we said the sentence is optional.
What I would want to do is like I said, a user creates a standalone claim without a sentence. The system rejects the claim. In that use case, what it captures is that a standalone claim requires a sentence. If a negation is added to it or a negation is automatically generated from it, it doesn't require a sentence, the negation, because it can be generated from the original claim, which was required to have a sentence.
I prefer my abstract version personally, saying you can create a claim without a sentence when the sentence can be generated. And
except that it
well, I prefer
except that it's
abstraction, and you know.
Yeah, no, I like abstraction, except when I can't do anything with it, because we haven't said when you said when it can be generated, but you haven't said the cases
when it can be generated. But those are you know, in a way, this is okay. You know, I think we need both. I think we need, this is a case where it can be generated. This is a case where it can be generated. This is a case where it can be generated. And then we can say, whenever it can be generated, you can create the claim without the sentence. And whenever it cannot be generated, you cannot create the claim without the sentence.
Yeah,
because
but
those are the
essentially
rules.
what you're doing is summing up rules that are already captured in the specific cases. So you're creating a...
No, I'm saying something more. I'm saying this is a case where it can be generated. This is a case where it can be generated. And whenever one of those cases is true, and that is a supplemental thing, then you can create the claim without the sentence. And whenever none of these is true, you cannot create the claim without the sentence. That is a moreover over you can generate in this case, you can generate in this case, you can generate.
I think I lost your sound. Is it me or is it?
I think
now I'm hearing you. Okay, it was me temporarily. I had a, yeah.
Okay, but what I'm saying is saying these are the cases where you can generate, and saying you can enter the claim without the sentence if and only if it cannot be generated. Those are distinct things.
Okay. I think this is one of those cases where we'll waste more time in discussing
Sure.
whether we should do it that way or not. Like, it doesn't hurt me to accept that case and move on. I don't think it helps, because we're still going to have to state every single case where that is and isn't. Yeah. But it hurts more to sit there discussing whether or not we should discuss it, I think. Okay, but so we're back to 36, which is in progress, a negation of a claim. So Felix, is that...
Yeah, I think it's possible with this model. So I think we can mark it as completed.
Okay, I'm okay with that too.
So yeah, I intentionally added another use case, which is 38. A sentence can be interpreted as one or more distinct claims, because this affects the whole design decision for optional sentences, I think.
I'm not sure. I mean, we can discuss that if you want. You're adding a new term, which is interpreted. And you're adding a new function, which is create a sentence, those are two things we haven't done.
What?
We haven't done create a sentence. We've done a claim is created that has a sentence. We haven't done create a sentence and boom, multiple claims come out of it, right? It's a totally different.
No. I don't think Felix is implying creating a sentence. Maybe he is. I should ask him. But it's not. I don't see it as given in this use case.
No, it's more like, okay, someone added a claim with one sentence, and someone else says, hey, this sentence from that claim can be interpreted as this other claim because it's ambiguous.
Okay, but then that's the use case. That's the use case that we should describe. And in more detail than that, I think, even to be more clear what's happening. But essentially, a claim is created with a sentence. Go ahead.
Objection. I see what you're doing with saying we can see it as creating two claims, each with a sentence, and saying, oh, they're not equivalent claims, yada, yada. I agree it's possible to see it that way, but that is baking the model into the use case. Whereas I think what Felix is doing is expressing it as a use case that does not presume the model, and then we can refactor the model. But saying it's done as a claim with a sentence, that's baking the model into the definition of the use case. And I think this makes refactoring harder.
I get what you're trying to say here, but I don't see how we can model a sentence can be interpreted as one or more distinct claims.
Okay, so let's.
It could be a part of a process, like with the society library.
No, I agree. This is something that can happen, right? Much as, two people can get into a fight. I could throw that. Two people are reading the website and get into an argument and they decide to go and create things. That's not something I'm building into a model, right? And you can build into a process, but a process is multiple steps. And this process of design is one action at a time, right? So this is where it's like,
let's try to be minimal in our implications, but go a bit more detailed than Felix did, because you have a point that it needs to be more detailed. Let's try to do it without baking it into the model, is what I'm saying. So we have a sentence in the system. We know it's associated to a claim somehow, right? And someone wants to associate the same sentence with a distinct claim. The question of how distinct can be raised, and maybe explaining the distinction should be part of the process. But I'm not going there yet. But at least the user, in terms of progressive formalization, should be able to just say, this is a distinct claim. It's not equivalent, but it uses the same sentence. And maybe it's, how is it distinct? Maybe that's another step in another use case.
Well, but for one thing, we can do that using some of the terms we already have, right? You can say a user takes a claim, takes a sentence from an existing claim.
Yeah, that's fine.
And this is the part we need to get a little more specific on, but decides to, now here's what I'm not sure what you want to say, is decides to reuse it for a new claim. Distinct claim, we can say, is another claim that does not have an equivalence relationship with this claim. That is a distinct claim. That's how I interpret it, and that's how.
And I think it goes further in that the equivalence relationship is not only absent, but explicitly preempted, which is different.
I agree.
One thing,
But okay, but wait, is that required before do this step? You have to say these are absolutely distinct, and now I can reuse the sentence, or I can somehow.
I think it's required because basically what I'm saying is if somebody else says, oh, same sentence equivalent, then they've undone what I was doing, and which is fine maybe, but there's no record of the contradiction. There's no record of disagreement, which I think is not fine. Like saying that the operation of then adding an equivalence relation to the distinct claims is a destructive operation because it destructs what I was trying to express. So I want the expression of distinction to be in the model so that contradicting it is marked as a model change.
I agree.
Yeah, I take your point very well. I'm not sure that I want it to be explicit because I haven't seen that necessity. I personally would rather see it be distinct in terms of other formalized parameters that indicate that they are not the same claim. In other words, I would want to make them distinct through a reason why they're not the same. Right?
And there I'm with you, by the way, Tim, in the sense that I think that somebody who expresses a non-equivalence should be asked to justify it with an actual distinction. This is true of that claim. This is not true of that.
Yes.
Except that,
but
yeah.
In the interest of progressive formalization, I would say it should be possible to say, I think they're different. I'm not sure why yet. and if somebody disagrees, I'd like to know that, it's important to say, okay, well, you know what? Somebody disagrees. Maybe you need to come up with a reason why they're different. But
no, I think the person explicitly saying they're distinct needs to say why they're distinct. You can't. Go ahead.
I agree with you, Tim, that that's really important data because then people can just be like flippantly, saying, I don't agree with this. But at the same time, it's very valuable data to discover if someone's not understanding something being distinct or supposes that it is distinct, but is unable to articulate how. That could be useful data to see like whether or not there is actual meaning making and sense making that's happening in this model. Because it could be that people just don't get it. They're like, I don't get it. And that would be a huge red flag that something needs to change in order for people to actually make sense of stuff together.
I don't see that actually happening in real life. Because you're saying, you're saying, yeah, okay, blah, blah, blah sentence means this, but the same sentence also means something different. I don't know what it is. I don't see that happening. I see it saying, no, but I meant more like, this, like, for example, the framing, philosophical framing or whatever, there's got to be something like you didn't get what I was trying to say because I was really talking about how it applies to the average person, not rich people or something. There would be some reason why you're not okay with that interpretation of a sentence.
It's true that when I think of cases where people don't know how to articulate, it's more the equivalence or the refusal of equivalence. Like saying we have two sentences. Oh, I think those are the same. No, I think they're not the same, but I'm not sure I can say why. That is a more frequent use case than saying, I think this sentence has another interpretation, but I don't know what it is. I can buy that. But I think that, yeah. The one thing that will happen is more in the downstream, right? It's saying, I have this claim, and then I'm saying, oh, it entails this. And somebody else says, oh, it also entails that. And somebody would say, no, 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 no. The interpretation where it entails this is distinct from the interpretation where it entails that. And I'm not sure what the difference is, but it's because of the different entailments that you suspect that there's two distinct interpretations of the original thing, which you may not be able to name yet. But it's true that it's external to the sentence in and of itself. It's because of its connecting, what it's connected to. So you have a point that the sentence alone, if there's a feeling of difference, it will be justified by something else.
taking our primary example, right? Socrates is mortal, right? No, but you know, all men are mortal, right? Is the thing. Well, you know, all women are mortal too. Or no, the body dies, but they have an eternal soul, so nobody's mortal, right? In all those cases, you've got a sentence where the sentence is the same and you want to make a separate claim, but you're pretty sure why you think they're separate, right? And so I just can't see that as being a generic.
Yeah. And this is extremely important. You're right. Often when there's the distinction, we should be able to come up with variant sentences saying this is closer to the specific intent and it's maybe subsumed in the.
I mean, you could even want to borrow the same sentence again, which is, you know, kind of the reverse of what we generally look at, you know, the society library approach and everything, which is find lots of different ways to say a claim, right? So accumulating sentences for a claim, and you're going to have a sentence that's reused in lots of places in that way. This is kind of the opposite, taking the sentence and seeing how many different claims you can make out of that one sentence. But it's still the same kind of thing where, you know, for me, the distinction comes in defining, even if you're using the same sentence, defining different contexts, or in your case, different topics to which the claim refers. That's how I would want to do it. But, you know, we can, you know, I agree with the spirit of what of wanting to make the claims explicitly distinct. I think the system should interpret claims without equivalence or negation relationships as default distinct. I think they are distinct unless someone goes to the effort to say they're the same. But
well, there's a difference, and what I'm saying is there's a difference between default distinct and declared distinct, known to be distinct.
Right, and that's, you know, yeah.
True, false, null. Said to be true, said to be false, said to be null. And of course, both, because I believe in plurality, but that's different. But at least the null is saying we haven't thought seriously about whether those two are equivalent, and it is distinct. That is distinct from saying we've thought about it and no, those are not the same.
So, okay, so but getting back to the process, I think we've kind of thought through this a lot out loud. I would say that the one on 38 is too hard for me to
I just wrote it in progress because we were processing it.
No, that's fine. But I would say that it's either too vague to model, or needs to kind of be rewritten in a way that can be discussed better, or is missing some other steps first. Maybe we want to first, you know, table it and then discuss specifically.
No, let's try to rephrase it.
A user can declare two claims as non-equivalent, as distinct, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it should be rephrased. And maybe we should take, and maybe it's a distinct thing, but saying a user wants, there's a claim, like let's take the Socrates is mortal example, and somebody wants to reframe it as mortality is about the body.
Yeah, or my pet is called Socrates.
Yeah. Well, that's yes.
That gets into some other use cases, but those are all
But-
ones we're going to have to tackle. We know that.
But that's by the way, the pet Socrates is only a problem with the conclusion, with not with the premise. It's contradicting a premise, not a conclusion, right? The Socrates is a man was the premise, unless you have
Right, and then
human pets.
there's another person called Socrates.
Yeah. Yeah,
Whatever.
no, but
Yeah.
then the syllogism would work for any person called Socrates, actually.
True. Yep.
Unless Socrates was a cat.
Right. Then
No, but that's what
your
I'm saying.
premise is wrong.
Then you're contradicting the premise. Socrates is a man.
And Socrates is a woman is also.
Well, but
It depends on
I
your
was,
definition of man. But anyway, we're
but no,
getting.
but actually, this is the one I was aiming at, right?
Yeah.
Socrates is a man, and there's a woman named Socrates because in some cultures, Socrates is a woman's name, and we want to make it clear that what we meant by this was human, and we were using the old English generic man, and but the more precise interpretation of that sentence is all human are mortal, right? Instead of all men are mortal. And so we have a sentence which is a claim, and we want to say the more precise version of this is. So that's one case, like a better formulation. That's a reformulation. That's one case. And the other case is we want to subdivide. Actually, we do mean men and women, and those are separate claims. And I want to replace the all men are mortal by all male men are mortal, because that's what I mean. It's another more precise, less ambiguous formulation. So I want to disambiguate a claim. So that's one case, saying this claim has one or many disambiguated claims. I think that's a use case. I don't know if that's a use case you had in mind, Felix. So I would not say let's just rephrase, but I think as a special case of what you're saying is this claim has multiple disambiguated claims. And that's what I would mean by one possible meaning of interpretation. Like this claim is a more precise version of this, such that many explicitly different claims are valid disambiguation of that source ambiguous claim.
Which is, yeah, that's one special.
That's one interpretation of interpretation.
Thing. Yeah.
Maybe not the only one, but certainly a valid one, I would argue. So let me write this down. Claim is proposed as a less ambiguous interpretation of another claim. Actually, many claims. No, at least one. And separately, multiple disambiguations of a claim, or disambiguation. Now let me less ambiguous versions of a claim are stated to be distinct or non-equivalent. And that's one reason I'd like non-equivalence to be explicit. Oops, no. Felix, what do you think of that formulation?
Yes, I think it's a very special case.
Yes, it is. I'm not claiming I've totally covered your case. I'm claiming it is one special case of your case.
My motivation for my use case was to get a many-to-many relationship between sentence and claim. like to
Same.
justify that.
I'm aware.
Mm,
I'm aware.
and yeah. And I'm wondering if the overly specific use case helps achieving that goal.
That's what I'm wondering about as well. I think it is. I think it does actually. It's about saying in the sense that the ambiguous version of the claim can be interpreted as meaning in relationship to many disambiguated versions. So it has multiple interpretations, which are the less ambiguous versions. And when we have a claim, we will look at all the less ambiguous versions as the other side of that many to many thing. So interesting.
What does Tim have to say?
I think all of these proposed ones are a little taking too big a leap. For one thing, like I mean, I think it's backwards for this process to. Well, it's not backwards. I mean, trying to force a design.
We're all doing it. The question
Yeah,
is,
I mean, it's kind of backwards, kind of not.
These,
it's what we're supposed to do. It's supposed to indicate, you know, you think you know where it should be going, so you try to come up with use cases that make that happen. That's fine.
Are those valid use cases? I think
yeah,
yes.
but they need to go in smaller steps to get there. And
why?
For example, why? Because
I think this is actually a pretty small step.
Because we haven't defined things, because you start using those words that we don't know what they mean, and we start debating half an hour about what does less ambiguous mean, right? As opposed to like for example, a disambiguation, a definition is added to a word in the claim sentence in order to disambiguate or something like that.
Which is another way to disambiguate.
It is a way to disambiguate, yes.
You can do definitions or you can do reformulations. Both are valid ways to disambiguate.
You can do what? Reformulations? What is a reformulation?
It's creating a new sentence that has the same intent.
Okay, but
which is exactly what 41 is, right?
No, I think it's what 40 is. And a new sentence is added to a claim.
Okay, no, and here.
Oh, right, yeah.
Okay, do we have? I didn't go the route of 40 because that's a model thing, right? But it's the equivalent. It's handled by equivalence relations. Because in theory, the model can just say, oh, I'm adding another claim with the new sentence, and I'm saying they're equivalent, and it's got the exact same effect as equivalent to. We haven't modeled the equivalence relation as a separate object in the model, which I think is important to do. We haven't materialized the equivalence relation, and hence to be able to contest it, which I think is important to do, which are other things. But I don't think the new sentence is added to the claim changes the model.
It does. Itself. You don't have a claim that has more than one sentence.
No, but that's not a new use case. What I'm saying is this can be handled within the model. As a use case, it can be handled, unless you make it a model assertion, in which case you're cheating. But I'm saying as a use case, it doesn't change the model.
Yeah, it's already handled.
How is it handled already?
You're creating a new claim in an equivalence relation.
Yeah. It didn't say a new claim was created.
No, but is this
okay?
14?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Okay. A user adds a new sentence to a claim. You're right. It can be handled as a new claim with an equivalence relationship, if that's how you want to model it, right?
Exactly. What I'm saying is, are you making is 40 a model level statement or a use case level statement? If it's a use case level statement,
it's a use case level statement.
In which case
Use
the
case.
model handles it. I'm not happy with
Sure,
the way
if you want to, yeah. But you don't have to model it. I mean, we don't have to force the model to go somewhere. We can change the model and see if the change supports everything we've had before.
Which is absolutely,
right?
Yes, that's a totally different valid step. Yes, I would have no problem with that. Doing the alternate model, that's valid. Okay, so, but by the way, when you say a claims proposed as less ambiguous interpretation, when I said reformulate, I'm saying here's another claim, and I say it's, and this is a good question, is it distinct or is it not distinct as an object? And here I'm being neutral about what a claim is. Is it the claim as it's defined in this model or in my model? Because they're quite distinct, because mine is more the equivalence class itself, right? But it is saying this original more ambiguous sentence has many interpretation, and the other has less interpretation, and the interpretations of that second sentence is a subset of the interpretation of the first sentence. And that's what I mean clearly by less ambiguous. It's a strict subset of interpretations. And how do you know the interpretations are distinct? You know the interpretations are distinct because of the equivalence class, which is declared, or because of the implicatures. And this is where getting the distinctions explicit becomes interesting and useful.
I updated.
Okay.
In other words, the intention of the user is just to give another way to say it, as
Yep.
opposed to,
that's, which is a valid use case. So is the next exercise to have the alternative model, or are we first, should we accept that this is a valid use case, which I think it is, this can be supported by the current model, which I think is true, and that this may be worth looking at an alternative model? Maybe that's the next steps. Anybody has a hard stop at the hour?
Yeah, I was gonna say
you do, silly.
I know. Well,
it's cool. You can keep talking.
You said after. After was left underdefined.
Fair. And you know what? That's okay for me. I can hang out. And for everyone else, Marc-Antoine and I are going to have a chat about Society Library climate change data, because we have used parameterized claims. And so I just wanted Marc-Antoine to take a look and see if we're on the same page there. And you guys, of course, are welcome to come too.
Yeah, I would like to join that, just because I don't know if you're using parameterized claims in the same way that me and Marc-Antoine were using it, and I'm curious to see that. Yeah,
my idea of parameterized claim is evolving fast these days. So
everything is parameterizable, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll get into it.
Okay, but like, how do we resolve the current, because the process somehow stalled? Like,
well, it stalled in the fact that, like, I propose that
I propose a way
38 is either way too advanced, it's way too far in the front to absorb right now, or needs to be rewritten. So I would want to move it back to declared and choose a different proposed use case.
Yeah, that's fine for me.
And I propose 41 as a rewriting of part of 38. 41, 42 as a rewriting of part of 38. And Tim proposed 40, and I said one way forward is to handle 40 first. I have no problem with that. So declare it proposed and progress. And look, we agreed that there's more than one way to skin that cat. And let's actually write down that alternate model.
Like in general, Timothy, like how does the process deal with different isomorphic models?
However we want to do it. I would prefer to keep one model. But if you want to have an alternate proposal out there, and we can look at both, because if multiple models can support the same thing, we can take a look and see which way they're going. And it's kind of like the Bitcoin conflict resolution. At some point, we're going to get to a use case where we'll all agree, okay, this one version of the model best handles this new use case, and we'll keep that one. But I don't have a problem with keeping competing models until there's a easy decision to be made.
At the risk of being a bit cheeky, I would say I would propose using my model and see whether it handles all the use cases.
I would prefer to. I mean, we can go and compare every now and then, but I don't want to keep a model that has more things in it than
just
we've
like
discussed. I don't want that
Marc-Antoine.
distracting. Yeah.
The subset of Marc-Antoine's model that models these use cases.
I could do that.
Yeah, I don't mind.
I think I've done
comparing
it
every now
already,
and then.
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you did.
So, yeah,
I would propose right now, real quick. First, can you turn 38 to declared?
yeah.
I would propose we do 37.
Or even work in progress.
Maybe. Yeah, it's up to Felix.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay. I would propose we do 37 because I've just been hanging out there waiting for us to just mark it completed, essentially. We did a claim is created to oppose the support of one claim for another claim, but we didn't do a claim to support it created to support the support of one claim for another claim. It's just
And it's trivial in the current
it's
model.
trivial.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can
we just mark 37 completed?
I would. Yes.
It's trivial
No
because
objection.
we defined a recursive model, so that's good.
Happy with that? Yeah, let's make the easy cases. Many of them will fall at this point, which is good.
Yeah.
Okay, so change of topic.
Do we
Jamie?
want to go on to Jamie? And Jamie, do you want it to be a private meeting?
No,
Or
sure,
do you want to
invited.
use this here? Okay.
Oh, did we record?
Marc-Antoine, I think you sent a calendar invite. So maybe could you add everyone else to that calendar invite?